What's up, fam? Happy Monday, or whenever you're tuning in to this episode. I'm willing to bet that as you're listening right now, there is a decision that you need to make in your life that you're being held back because of fear. Fear is a universal feeling that every single one of us have experienced. And unfortunately, it has held so many of us back from actually creating lives that we love because fear is so powerful. So today I want to dive into the topic of fear, but since we only have 20 minutes together, I'm going to talk about fear just when it comes to making decisions. I'm framing this entire conversation around the quote, "Feel the fear and do it anyways." Now, I acknowledge it is so much easier said than done, but I want to give you 3 tangible things that you can do today to work through some of that fear so that it doesn't have so much power over you when it comes to making decisions. Now, I don't know what decision you need to make. Maybe it's quitting your job. Maybe it's applying for a new job, even if you don't feel qualified for it. Maybe it's leaving a relationship. Maybe it's putting yourself back out there to be in a relationship. Maybe it's turning your side hustle into a full-time business. I don't know what the decision is for you, but I do know that fear can get in the way of you actually making the decision that you know in your heart, in your gut, is the right decision for you. Now, I'll be honest, I had a completely different topic in mind for today's Mindset Monday that I was excited to talk to you guys about, but I had something happen in my personal life last night where I was talking to somebody that's very close to me and has been going through a really difficult time. And there's such a big decision that they need to make in their life that only they can make, but they're held back because of fear. And it really got me thinking about how powerful fear truly is. And we all have varying degrees of this, right? Our decisions are all very different. But I realized one of the most powerful things you can do is support the people around you to make decisions that are hard to ultimately make their lives that much easier. So I wanted to bring this topic to you guys today because I love all of you and I want you to be able to implement these 3 tools because I want you to live a big life that you absolutely love. And unfortunately, fear makes a lot of us stuck. Now, I first want to say that whatever fear that you're facing right now, it's totally valid. That is your fear. That is your reality. My goal is just to give you tools to be able to work through it, not to try and diminish what you're facing. There's a lot of research that will say that fear is made up, that fear is not real. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that because I don't know about you, but when I am feeling fear, I have physical symptoms. I suddenly hate flying. And every time that I'm getting ready to go get on a plane, there is some real feelings of fear there. And I have a pit in my stomach. My heart is racing. I have to pee a million times. There are physical symptoms there. But when I was thinking about that today, I realized I also feel similar feelings when I'm excited. When I got into the studio to record this episode today, suddenly I had to pee a bunch of times before I record, and I have butterflies in my stomach. And I quickly researched, why is that? Because I have similar physical symptoms, but they're different. And I realized it's because we have the stress hormone, cortisol and adrenaline that starts pumping through your veins when your brain tells your body that you're experiencing a certain emotion. So in this case, when I'm experiencing excitement, it acts like butterflies in my stomach. Whereas when I tell myself I'm experiencing fear, it acts like a pit in my stomach. That mind-body connection is really powerful. And it got me thinking, if we can shift our mindset, if we can shift our thoughts and our relationship with how we view fear, could we ultimately change our life? The answer is yes. So I don't think that fear is made up. However, I do think fear is fiction. And I say that because life is less about what happens to us and more about how we perceive what happens to us. It is the story that we tell ourselves. And if you can change the narrative that you're telling yourself, your story changes. So let's rewire and rethink the way that we view fear and the power that we are giving to fear. And one of the ways that you can do that is to look at past experiences. Your experiences shape your perspective. There's things that happened to you, that happened to me a long time ago that have stuck with us. They stick in our subconscious, and it pops up anytime we feel feelings of fear, of rejection, of pain, of any of these difficult feelings that often are associated with fear. I'm going to give you a very vulnerable but real example of how I've seen this play out throughout my life. So when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I was in middle school. And my teacher used to do this thing called popcorn reading. I don't know if your teachers did that, but I used to freaking hate it. They would just select a random student and you would read a chapter or a page or whatever, and then she'd pick another student and you'd move on. For most people, they didn't seem to have a problem with this, but I remember the first time I was called on, I went to read the page out loud and I started stumbling over my words. If you don't have dyslexia or don't know anybody that does have dyslexia, the words really get just scrambled around. And so I have to deconstruct all of that scrambled mess in my mind to try and read it out loud. And for whatever reason, reading out loud is a lot more difficult for me than reading silently. So I'm seeing a bunch of words on this page. They're all getting all mixed together. And then I start getting embarrassed. And then I'm starting to feel all these other feelings. And so then my voice starts shaking and my classmates start laughing at me. They start making fun of me. And in the small town that I grew up in, the majority of the people you went to elementary school with, you went to middle school with, and you went to high school with, like, this was something that stuck with me. And it started this very deeply rooted fear that I have of sounding stupid. It made it so I absolutely hated reading and writing. I hated public speaking. And ultimately, it gave me this very deep-rooted belief that I am not smart. And that's something that I have carried with me my whole life. And I've seen it play out in so many different situations. And whenever there's been a negative situation that validates that belief becomes so much stronger. And it's like, yep, oh, I knew I wasn't smart. That reinforces it. That reinforces it. So this has been at play for many, many years. I want to fast forward to when I'm 26 years old, living in New York. I had just had this idea of coming up with More Than. Fear held me back from launching More Than for a very long time. Part of More Than is a blog, so I'm writing a lot, and also obviously the podcast where I'm public speaking. And the idea of talking or writing or exposing myself, not being an expert in an area and making myself vulnerable to the opinions of other people and potentially being made fun of was such an overwhelming fear for me that it held me back. It made me not want to start in the first place. Fast forward again, I launched More Than far before I was ready. I decided to feel the fear and do it anyways. And I remember the feeling right after I launched of just taking a deep breath and being like, that wasn't so bad. And then I started getting some positive reinforcement that what I'm doing matters, that it's positively impacting people, that my story is resonating. And it shifted my entire mindset. And it helped me define myself differently when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to reading, when it comes to writing. And it's now something that has never gone away. I'll be honest, even as I come into the studio and I hit record, I still get those butterflies. I still have that negative voice in my head saying, what if you stumble over your words? What if you sound stupid? What if you get made fun of? Well, then I shift it and start thinking about all the past examples that have proven to me that what I'm doing matters. And I choose to listen to that more than I listen to the negative voice in my head. Now, I share this example with you because I'm going to show you how I've used these 3 tools to really work through this and be able to show up doing something that does bring me fear every single week, now twice a week with you guys, and how I've been able to use these tools and implement them into my life so that you can now implement them into your circumstance. So number one is reframing and rewriting. Our past often builds our definition of how we view things. Like I said in the beginning, your experiences shape your perspective. So if whatever decision you have that you're facing right now, let's say you're trying to decide if you should leave a toxic relationship. Well, if in the past you haven't been in healthy relationships, then you might be telling yourself, well, this is normal. Maybe this is even better than what I experienced before, so I should just stay in it. Maybe in your past you came from broken relationships or divorced parents, or you haven't seen successful relationships. So that is just reinforcing this idea and this fear that you should stay in the situation that you're in, even though deep down in your gut, you know it's not right. That fear is holding you back. If you are spending your time with the wrong person, you're never going to find the right person. So your past experiences are going to shape your perspective right now. So what I want you to do instead is to reframe this. A very easy, simple way that you can start making decisions that you know aren't fear-based is by writing it down. Write down the decision that you know in your heart, in your gut is the right decision for you. Now make a whole little pros and cons list. You know, we've all been told to do this when it comes to decision making. And honestly, it works. Being able to see a pros and a cons and being honest with yourself and getting your thoughts onto paper and visualizing it really helps you decide what is ultimately going to be better for you. And you'll also see that probably a lot on that page is fear-based. You'll be able to recognize that. Now, here's the fun part. You get to scratch all that out and reframe it. And how you're going to reframe it is by asking this simple question. This is step number 2. What is the best case scenario? What if I make this decision and it all works out? What if I make this decision and my entire life changes for the better? Now, if you're an anxious, fear-based person like I am, I guarantee you've already thought through worst case scenario of absolutely everything when it comes to this decision. We are on default to start letting negative thoughts just run rampant through our minds. So instead, I want you to intentionally shift to a more positive thought process. What is the best case scenario here? What if I step out in faith and it goes right? Once you have that positive reference point, it gets a lot easier to make a decision because let's face it, a lot of the times when we're making painful decisions especially, we don't get any instant gratification right after. It can be hard before we make the decision, while we're making this decision, and after. But if you can create a conviction deep within you that knows that you are following what your gut says, and you've already thought through the best case scenario, that's your light at the end of the tunnel. That's what you need to keep working towards and keep pushing towards. So it's really important to try and shift your mindset to a more positive direction before even making this decision so that when it does get difficult, you at least have something to look forward to and something that is pushing you through. That leads me to number 3, accountability. We are created for community. We're supposed to be surrounded by other people that can speak life into us, that can speak encouragement into us. And so many of us deal with these difficult decisions or even easier decisions alone. And we're just thinking through them without the opinions of anybody else. Or maybe you do the direct opposite and you tell everybody everything that's going through your mind and you're only trying to make decisions based off of what other people want for you. So I don't want you to do either one of these extremes. Instead, I want you to go to somebody that you trust, that you respect, and have them hold you accountable when it comes to making this decision. I mentioned in the last Mindset Monday that confidence comes from keeping the promises that we make to ourselves. Well, let's face it, when you're in the middle of a difficult decision, you don't feel that confident about the decision that you're making. And it's really difficult to keep a promise to yourself if you're already not feeling confident. But I'm pretty dang sure that you are extremely good at keeping the promises that you make to other people. So if you are vocalizing a decision that you're going to make, you come up with the decision, it's black or white, this is what I'm going to do, and you tell that to somebody that is holding you accountable, you are going to keep that promise, quote unquote, to them because of how much you value their opinion, value their feedback, and they're then able to support you throughout the entire process too. So you don't need to go spread your business all over the place. Just find the one or two people that you really respect to help you navigate through this decision-making process that can be there for you throughout and even after. And knowing that you're not alone in the midst of making a decision takes the fear out of it. So today, I invite you to feel the fear and do the damn thing anyways. If this episode made an impact on you, share it with somebody or share it on social media. I absolutely love connecting with you guys online, and make sure that you are following the More Than Show on Spotify and Apple so you never miss any of our episode drops. And if you haven't already, take a second to rate and review the show. It helps us grow and continue bringing you amazing free content. I love you guys. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week.